السلام علیکم و رحمت الله و برکاته. جور تازه تکلا بخیر، خدا کنه جور باشین، خوب باشین، سلامت باشین برادرها و همشیرها و دوستا و رفقا. ببخشین که دفعه دیگه باشگاه رفتیم، افغانی رفتیم. Sorry, the last time we had to postpone because of some problems with our network here. Nothing that I could do. Salam. So, yeah, before I go ahead, I would like to, because my guest today, my dear friend and guest, is already online. So before we go ahead and before she joins in, walaikum assalam, Wahib Jan Aziz, I would like to start this episode today with a jurat mekunam ke, to start with a very beautiful poem. The origins are unknown, at least for me, but it fits very well with today's conversation and our guest, of course. میگه گر روزی از قضا اگر حاکم این شهر شدم، گر روزی از قضا حاکم این شهر شدم، خون سید شیخ را به یک مست فدا خواهم کرد. خون سید شیخ را به یک مست فدا خواهم کرد. خیر بینی اینجا عزیز. گر روز از قضا حاکم این شهر شوم، خون سید شیخ را به یک مست فدا خواهم کرد. در وسط کعبه یک میخانه بنا خواهم کرد، تا نگویند مستان بیخبرند از خدا. All right, I love that. I just love that. It takes a very big, I think, explanation behind why was this poem written. But I think we can all relate to this. We all have that must in us. That part of us is must. And the people who are the shaykhan او را خب بیازن مگه ما خبر هستیم، مگه با خبر از خدا و عشق خدا کی است؟ فقط خدا میدانه و شخص میدانه و قلب انسان. All right, so thank you very much for all the love. So my today's guest, Wazina Jan Jwandun. Wazina Jan Jwandun. She's African American, raised in New York City. New York. Yeah, right. That's it. She is a sexuality educator and trainer who focuses on intersectional identities. Now remember, that's a very complex issue, and it takes a very in-depth understanding of the whole spectrum and a lot of knowledge and study. I'm pretty sure of that. In addition to that, she is the co-writer and co-performer of Coming Out Muslim, a radical act of love, a personal storytelling performance, capturing the experience of being queer and Muslim. She co-hosts a podcast, which is called Follow the Flannel. It's about sexuality. And, of course, she's the co-creator and actor of a beautiful and deep performance art called Where Will I Be Buried? And you can go and check it out on wherewillibeburied.com. Out of all that, if she gets time, she's a sex educator. She teaches sex education at an all-girl public high school in Brooklyn. So, educator, a trainer, an activist, a Muslim, a cool personality and artist. Juan Wazina Jan Jwandun. We'll be waiting for her to come online so we could bring her up and she could take the stage for us. I'm pretty sure that she's here somewhere, but we'll be waiting for her. So this is going to be a very beautiful, in-depth conversation about all this spectrum of how to actually, I have to say, oh, here she is. Here she is. These are the cool kids. These are the people who have made their own side of the street. The coolest people as there is, and I feel very cool today to be there. Salam alaikum.
Assalamualaikum, Surastin. Can you hear me?
Well, good. Yes, I can hear you clearly. Thank you very much. How are
Good,
you? Welcome finally with
Subah khair.
Shukr,
Subah khair, subah khair.
tashakkur.
It's like what?
Shabbos
Thank you, thank you.
It's 11. Yeah,
Oh, great. Yeah.
it's 11 in the morning. So it's not that
Yeah.
bad.
Okay.
It's not that bad. But for you, it's 10
Yeah.
p.m.
This is like witching hours. It's
So
good. Yeah. Witching hour.
okay.
Yeah.
Witching hour. That's it. Thank you
witching
very
hour
much.
for F1s. What is that
John.
called? Witches? Yeah, I know. Like
Witching and the witches.
the
Yeah, I thought
what's
that
the word for witches?
I thought that only starts from midnight till 3, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah. That's the time where your artistic personality actually wakes up. So maybe that's
Although
just the witching hours
right,
magic.
not very far from Farah John's time. My sister just told me my human design, very like birth chart oriented information was that I should only be basically generating during sunlight. I should also only eat during sunlight. She told me. I was like, well, okay.
Wow.
I'm always hungry, so it's fine.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, why not? Whenever you feel the hunger, you eat, and whenever your inner artist wants to speak, you gotta sit down and write it down. That's what I believe. So, Wazinajon Aziz Juandun, Wazinajon Juandun. I just love that last name, and we're gonna go in depth of how you came up with that. That's just beautiful. All right, so thank you very much for coming on. I'm so sorry about the last time. There was nothing that I could do.
You can't even talk about it.
It was
Raftek, Almanak, whatever. Like a goes in the wind. A fart in the wind. That's my favorite saying, American saying. A fart in the wind.
A fart in the wind. That's it. Thank you very much. That was beautifully done. All right. So before we can go anywhere with our chat today, I should say that I feel like that cool kid, which I never was. Being among you guys, sitting in front of you, talking to you, and being inspired by you makes me that cool kid. Now, how beautiful is that? We will talk about it. Why do I say all this stuff? But before all that, let's get into our rapid fire icebreaker. I'm pretty sure you have a little bit of understanding how does that go. So we're gonna have some.
I have one for you also.
Questions for you.
I have one for you, by the way. At the very end, I have one for you. Yeah. It's very wazina.
Okay.
For anybody who's like watching Amnikai or like Awan, I'm like there's like 3 Afghans that know this thing, but that I do with Afghans, but yeah, I have one for you.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. I'm actually very nervous. I'm really
so much
bad
fun.
at
No,
this.
it's so much fun. It's so easy. It's so much easy. It's so easy, but also we'll get there.
Okay. Cool. All right. Okay. So here we go with Wazina John. If you could go back in time and meet one historical figure, who would that be and what would you ask?
I would ask, I would probably go back to my, my Baba side. I have a very deep affinity and deep proximity, like a lot of like access to my mom's side of the family. So I would like to go back to my dad's side and just my Baba John, my dad's dad, and just like have any chat with him. Maybe just ask like his general impression of my father. Like, what did you expect? Did he meet up to it? Who was he? What was he like? Just something like that. That's all I would want to know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Very, very simple, but very deep. Because of course, if you wanted to know about how you have done and how your parents have done, you can always go back and would love to because I've never met my grandparents,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah.
and I think I would go with that answer as well, because they have seen both worlds, and they've seen more changes of the world, especially Afghanistan. So for them to
Yeah.
actually see how we have that
Yeah.
would be quite phenomenal. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. That was
Yeah. And I also,
beautifully
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
answered.
about like my dad, like, he's like such like he's like the mirror of like what has changed, what's not good, what's good. And even when he's like, even when he says things are good, you're like, it's not good. Like, I know it's not good. He's just trying to like hold back any judgment, but there's always judgment in his like expression. And I'd be curious to know like who is the person who was one of his mirrors. And I dare to say that like my like Baba John, like his father was not a judgmental mirror. Um, I would like to hope so, and I would love to like get that confirmation. Like I'm not a judgmental mirror, and I would like to think that he like my grandfather on his side, both grandfathers were probably not that judgmental, and it comes from another place, like a source of like probably capitalism, shit like that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, understandable. It's very obvious that you have put some really deep thoughts into this. Actually, you have
Oh yeah.
thought about this. All right, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so if you could choose a superhero and a supervillain and make a hybrid, who would that be?
Would I be the superhero?
Yes, and if you could have a hybrid of a supervillain and a superhero.
Um, I like as somebody as so like this is a secret that I don't tell most people, but it's like so if I can't go to sleep, my favorite thing to do is like even as a kid from as a child I started this. I would play my favorite I would in my brain I would play my favorite scene in a movie, and I would be that person in that movie, like my favorite character or not favorite character. I would replay that to go to sleep. My Sangina, my youngest sister is in the back room. I think she's watching this.
Okay.
It's okay, but like,
Salam alaikum.
yeah, Sangi can also just come on camera, but this is like an embarrassing thing, but like I would go to sleep like that, like that's I still do this to this day. If I can't go to sleep, I make believe I'm like my favorite character from like Anne Rice. This is Anne Rice, rest her soul. Khuda Babakshisha. She just died from Interview the Vampire. I put my favorite scene from the movie, and I would like be one of the characters in it. So superheroes and villains are like 100% in that. So like I will just say that for this moment, I'll be Brad Pitt in
Okay.
this scene and what any scene from Interview the Vampire, and Tom Cruise can be the villain. It's
Fair
like
enough.
super
Okay.
homoerotic,
Okay.
homosocial, like good, like I'll be any moment from like yeah, Interview the Vampire. Not a real superhero, not a real superpower, but they're all vampires. Also very hot, very good, very much powerful. I'd be any of those people.
A complete package. A complete package with the power of seduction, the
Oh, the
romance,
seduction,
the
yeah.
good looks,
You've seen this, right?
and to be young
Oh,
forever.
and you've
Yes,
seen
of
this,
course.
right? Like
Oh
oh yeah,
yes, a long time ago.
yeah.
Yes, but
Oh,
for
it's
sure, who
so
doesn't
good.
know
I'm like, yeah,
Interview with
like,
the
and
Vampire?
like,
Of
and
course.
yeah, and like Brad Pitt is like, like he has like a deep soul. He's like doesn't want to like eat or kill humans, so he like eats rats. It's like, which is like so lovely and like humanitarian, which I really like. It's like also very like I would like to bridge like humanity and like being like a badass, which is like what he is, which is our theme, like
Fair enough.
rebellion,
Yeah,
like you said rebellion and it was like a musty, right? Like a mess, like yeah, musty, like
yeah.
I don't know if that's yeah, yeah. So there's like something must about it, and then like
Fair enough.
he's also like and like you get Tom Cruise's reason for being such like a badass must also in his own ways, and you're like he's like so mean, yeah, badmosh, I get it.
Bravo, bravo. Do you think that vampires eating rats instead of humans, is that considered vegan in their
I
life?
think so, 100%.
I don't know.
Yeah,
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 yeah, right.
yeah.
Okay,
I think
cool.
so.
All right, beautiful. So if you had the option of saving the young generation, could be maybe at to a certain point dumb but young, or to save the older generation wiser, but maybe a bit folkloric?
I'm um I'm going to be very, oh God. I hear my cat scratching something. So I have my 2.5-year-old cat and my
Bowie bang bang.
Bowie,
Bowie
bang
bang
bang,
bang.
bang
Yes.
bang Bowie, exactly. Like
Oh,
bang bang. This is like
bang,
Bowie is her name, but I call her Bang Bang because she's like such a good name. We live in the Bang Bang clubhouse, my sister and I, and we have an older cat who's 15, my older cat. So like I'm like holding these
wow.
two as my options, including or like as a
Okay.
meta thing. I would do older.
You would save the older
Only
generation.
because I also
Why is that?
I'm gonna be 39 this week.
Oh, God
Yeah,
bless.
Chancellor,
Happy
wait,
birthday
Chancellor,
in
can
advance.
I ask you how old you are?
No, you
No,
can't
okay,
ask me how
okay,
old I
fine.
am. I'm very old.
Hi, you can text me or
No,
anything.
I was born 85.
Okay, hi, I'm
So
older than you. Great, perfect. I will save you as well. You're in my boat.
we don't look
I
like
will
it.
save you in my older
Yeah,
boat.
okay.
It's okay. Anybody older than like
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
90. I think I guess my sister Sangina is like 93. So 93. Zarina is 92, and my brother and everybody else. I mean, everyone can live, but um,
Bravo.
thanks. Yeah. I'll be 39, so I'm like a little bit mindful about my age right now. So I'll save the older people.
I think shouldn't be mindful. You should be more treasuring it
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it's the experiences which counts, right? The experience of the world. You could be as bookworm as you want. You could be young, energetic, 22, 25. You could have your masters by then. But when you go out into the world, it's the experience of the world which actually helps you out. So I think experience of the world should be more important. Uh, I would say comparing to the
I do. Yeah.
energetic
Yeah. Yeah, and
personality.
yeah,
But okay, so
and I
so
bond with my, all the elders in my life, and whether they're like Avon or not, I really feel a deep affinity to them. So like yeah, I'll save them.
bravo. So an old soul, as we say, an
Yeah,
old soul. Bravo. Okay. All right. So for the young people, you can find me and kill me for
yeah,
this
exactly. Cancel us. I
question, of course.
dare you to cancel
All
us.
right. Cancel us. Cancel us. Fair enough. Okay. Read books. Read books or listen to grandma stories.
Oh, grandma stories. And yeah,
Grandma stories for
and then
sure.
I'll
I
write a
agree.
book about it. That's basically what I'm trying to do with my life. So it's fine. Yeah.
Ah, fair enough. Okay. 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 Fair enough. There you go. You've got it hand to hand going. Good. All right. The last thing, this one. If humans were aliens, if humans were aliens and they would visit one other planet, a civilization, what do you think? What would be their first act?
If I was Shema,
Because we all believe it's a very common belief among the astrophysicists, right? That if a very progressive civilization from outer space comes and visits us, it would be catastrophic because they would be more
yeah.
powerful, very advanced, blah 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 blah. But if we humans do go and we see some other planets, in your opinion, what would be our first act of initiation
I mean,
in human nature?
my first instinct is to say like something about like colonizing. Like I think about like
Well, yeah,
like all the indigenous like peoples around like where you are,
yeah,
where I am. Like I'm a Lenni Lenape lands, and you are on different Aboriginal world lands. So I think about like our the instinct is to colonize. But I think the other instinct is like for like if we were as like Earthlings, we're like collect like I would be a part of like the Earth people also. Tuba, it's true though. I went to another planet. I would probably like do something around like sense making. Probably like um yeah, probably creating like some sort of like the first thing we do is like okay, this is where water comes from. This is where like food comes from. This is where like we pee and poop, and so we yeah. So I think there's like a little like grid making, like sense making we would do. Nothing sexy, nothing great. Like just like, oh, this is where I have to go eat. This is where I have to go back to the bathroom.
hey, what is more sexier than telling people just how you can grow food and water which will help you live? longer and
Yeah.
healthier. I think
Yeah, and as a sex educator, I will never yuck somebody's yum. So please, whatever you want to do, if you want to eat, you want to pee, you want to poop, I will never yuck your yum. Get it? Yeah.
boom, that's it. All right, beautifully done, man. You were really
Thanks.
prepared for
Yeah,
this.
I know. I thought about it.
This, this was really awesome. This was really awesome. Uh, Before we could go deep into our convo, we would like to know how did you got that tone of your hair? Because we have spoken
I
about
know,
this. I
yeah.
had that too,
So I
and
will tell you,
and it
yeah.
took me freaking ages.
So there's two people I will acknowledge, and I can tag them on any comments if somebody wants them at some point. So
Really?
my first person, I have very dark hair. I'm, as we know, we are from I'm very very hairy part of the world. My hair is still a little bit blonde from being in the sun, but
Sure.
we so, tease us, like it's like also very like dub
Yeah.
us, so like
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
person that did it, she was a Turkish woman who for like 3 or 4 years, 2 years she did it. My first time took 9 hours of bleaching and toning. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep, and now I spend about 2.5 hours getting it bleached and toned every like 8 to 9 weeks. But just so you know,
Yeah.
I'm allergic. I don't know if anybody else is like, I become allergic
Oh,
to bleach to the point where my face is swollen for 3 to 5 days, like too bad. Like my eyes are like me punda, like they're like very swollen. Um, I look like a marshmallow person for 2 to 3 days, and so now it can't touch my scalp. I have to go like right anyway. So a little bit
wow.
and
Okay.
purple shampoo is all of our get like our like
Yeah.
purple shampoo. My fashion advice.
Bravo, bravo. Because I think I can completely relate to that. I used to be really into like, I don't know, if I want to wear something or my hair or my piercing, regardless of situation or people or even the atmosphere, I would do it. I remember I was in Kolkata in midsummer back in 2006, and I was wearing these uh, very high cowboy boots everywhere I would go, and when I would come back home and I would take those boots off, no one would sit in that apartment because it was just
We made
ridiculously
that.
violent.
Yeah.
But I would do it. I would do it. My my skin started to peel off because of all the heat and humidity inside those long, big cowboy boots. But I wanted to do it. So
Fashion is it? Yeah.
why
Yeah.
not? I could do it. That's it. That's it. But that was when I was young. We probably, if we would have
Yeah.
had this conversation back then, you would have killed me as a young dumb
No, we also wouldn't have any
generation.
face. We not even have Instagram. I would have had a flip phone in 2006, so it's fine. And
Exactly.
based on the themes that we're talking about, I would
Uh,
never have talked to Afghans in 2006 about anything. I was like,
Whoa,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Wow, okay. Nothing. I've got nothing to do.
yeah,
All right. So there's a big change.
yeah. It is.
All right, let's get into the meat and the potatoes. All right.
The shirwa, the shirwa.
محترمة تشروات. That's it. The soup. The Afghan. Is it an Afghan soup? Is it fair to say is it a soup or a broth?
Shirwa. I mean, I've heard that
Shirwa.
shirwa is also the stew for Afghans, like like ashak
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some.
yeah,
Yeah,
stew.
I
Yeah.
would I would say it's a stew. So yeah, meat and potatoes.
Stew,
Yeah.
stew. Okay. Meat and potatoes of the stew. All right. So could you please tell us a little bit about your life and ambitions growing up and what you do now, please?
Yeah. So I always identify myself as Wazina or Wazina. Depends on which way I want to say it. Like, but Wazina, I'm an Afghan raised in New York City, and I distinguish that because depending on where you are in the world, I'm Afghan enough, or I'm not, or Afghan enough, Afghan enough, or not Afghan enough. But in New York City, like there's like Americans will always say like I'm whatever version of American I am, but like in New York City and to be Afghan, like this combo, this hyphenation is like so unique. So like I grew up in New York City. My family and parents came here in early 80s. And I grew up with the expectation that we'd always go back to Afghanistan. And then it was like not until like 1991-ish, like we realized that we weren't. Or we were, yeah, we weren't. Like it wasn't very explicit until now as an adult that I ask about them, like what, like when did you know? But I grew up only wanted to do what made my parents happy. I grew up with the intention and expectation that I would work for the UN, and I would do like a maternal, like some sort of like health, public health, global health work. And I went to school for international relations and women's studies in upstate New York. I did not go to like a bougie school. I went to like the most affordable school I could go to because like so I could come home back to New York City. Well, at the time where we lived in New York City, I can come back. Um, and I somehow fell into the world of like I want to do international health. But my first work, like so like right, so I grew up wanting to only to make my parents happy, and I still want to make my parents only happy. Do want to do health related work, and then my first job was to make bleach kits and safer sex kits for sex workers. So bleach kits meaning things that like had a little bit of bleach, some water, and more bleach, like for folks who were injectable drug users. And these in this case it was like sex workers in upstate New York, and I also made like little like safer sex kits, like things that had like information where to go to the clinic, lubrication for condoms, like different types of internal and external condoms, or female male condoms, people call them. And I started doing this, and I was like, really loved it because there was like this reminder that, or like noticing that even in America, even like New York, even in New York, right? Like, so like 100 miles north of New York City, there was a public health, global health issue that I didn't have to go to Afghanistan to do it. And honestly, I like was living in America my entire life where like I'm so Americanized, westernized that like I could do public maternal health stuff, but I also want to like I don't have that language. I don't have like I mean I could learn vocabulary. Those things are very easy to do, but it's like the context in which sex work is such a thing, necessity without wanting to like I don't want to shit talk anybody's like work. I don't want to like yuck somebody's yum. And sex work may not be somebody's yum, but like it's like their existence. And so I was like, I'm like not bad at this. And I did not go to school for teaching. And I continued a trajectory, a career for the last 15 years, which is like really weird to say, but also I am going to be 39, so I can say that. I went into teaching sex ed from the perspective like I never want to yuck somebody's yum. I don't want to like gross. I never want to say like you know like or like this is bad, this is no good. Um, like naku, like I don't want to say that like because don't do it. Naku like doesn't ever work. Like nakani, like like everyone's like no, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do like reverse. Um, so I've spent my life has been doing that sex ed. It's not been met with open arms. My parents were like very embarrassed by this. I did not go for I went to a university for teaching, but I didn't go for teaching. I went for other things, and so I spent the last many years like informally learning how to teach really well. Um, and I made a career out of that. And then the other things that I get to do is storytelling, um, talking about our stories, my stories around being queer and Muslim, or just wazina in general. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years, and trying to like get paid for it here and there. Yeah.
So if you were to explain what you do, the sex ed, to a very everyday Afghan person in Afghanistan, how would you put that simply? Like, what is sex ed that you do?
Yeah. So the best way I can say is that I don't think I have all of the slices of this because I thought about this, and I think this is how I teach it. But sex ed is not just like the act of sex, who you do things with. I think when I say sex ed, people think like sexuality, right? It's like sexuality is not just like who you do things with and who you're attracted to, but sexuality is like this pizza pie, right? So sexuality is these 8 slices of what makes us up. So like sexual orientation, like who you are attracted to or have like interest with, like who I have do things with versus who I have fantasies and attractions to are very different, but like that's all part of sexual orientation, right? So like attraction, gender identity
Uh-huh.
and expression, body and health, right? Like from pubic hair to periods to being marizmoa, like to like pregnancy, STIs, that's body and health. And then there's like pleasure, what makes you feel happy, good, not just orgasms. There's like sexual assault,
Right.
sexual violence. There's also like relationships, love, relationships, and affection. What slice did I miss? Gender identity, expression, da, da, da. But there's like 8 slices of this. Like I think of sexuality is like this piece. It's like 8 slices,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So even if
Okay.
whether in
Okay.
Afghanistan and elsewhere, all these 8 slices are actively in our lives, even if they're like not top of our mind every day. Right. So like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when I'm
Okay.
Wazina is 39-ish, 38-ish years old, my maybe sexual activity, that the slice that has to do with sex, maybe body and health, because I'm thinking about like taking care of myself, love, affection, relationships, my relationship with my parents, my relationship with partners, like that is like these are like 3 things, and my gender, like my so these like 4 of the 8 slices of a pizza pie that I'm like thinking about all the time. But every single one of us has any of these 8 slices at play all the time. Maybe I don't have the words for it in Dari,
All over the
Pashto,
world.
Farsi. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we were not talking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe, and for some of us, it's like in our brain, in our hearts, we're thinking about it, but some of us we're not. So when I sex ed, sexual like holistic sexuality is like excess is something that like every single culture, religion, person, human, bacha, dokhtar, baba, mother, like man, woman, every
Of
single one
course.
is like zan, mad. We all have it. We all think about it. It's all relevant to us. It doesn't mean like
Sure. Yeah.
sexuality, right? Like sexuality is like
Yeah.
that's part of my sexuality.
It doesn't have to be that taboo. Yeah.
No,
It
it's
doesn't
not a
have to
taboo.
be because
No.
most of these issues arise in cultures and countries around the world, which sex itself is looked at as very taboo. Don't talk,
Mm.
don't teach, don't listen. Uh, go with what you're told by the elders on a week before your marriage or whatever, or it's not even spoken about.
If that,
You just go and do what you have heard from the girls in the
which is
school or the boys on the
the worst
street.
thing,
You
yeah.
just go and do that. Exactly. And that's where a lot of our
Mm.
problems come up from there. I think it's a very fundamental issue that a lot of depression, frustration, domestic
Violence, yeah.
problems, child issues, health issues for men and women, it's only because it's considered taboo as it shouldn't be. It should be educational like any other sort of uh,
Mm.
education. Bravo. Thank you
Yeah,
very much for that. We'll go a little
real,
bit
real.
more
Yeah.
in depth with that specifically about our own people. But for now, so the impact of post 9/11
Mm.
and the Afghanistan regime, what was the changes for you? Because I heard you say that you wanted to go back to Afghanistan before 9/11 to work and share your knowledge and wisdom and help to people. But after 9/11, it changed. If I got that correctly,
It did, yeah.
what was the change?
So, the biggest change I'll say is that I grew up, obviously in New York City. And I say like specific in New York City because it's like very specific New York things that happened, right? So in 1993, 94, whatever the year was, I remember when the first like World Trade Center bombings happened. Funny enough, I never did Hina this way. I do Hina now this way because I learned to undo the self-hatred that I have about Hina, and my gender and shit like that.
Bro,
But we'd always, like, ones like, and
it looks good
I don't know
now.
if I
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
I know, and my mom and
but
my mother and
but
father to this day. I went home. I saw them, whatever, yesterday, 2 days ago. Paritos like I was like, what? Like, hello, and they were like, I was like being like weirdo about it. I was like, hello, look at my hina. They're like, and my dad was like, but like whatever. He was like, he really likes it. He doesn't want to like acknowledge it that much. He's
of
like,
course, yeah,
but
fair enough.
I learned this from I remember the same like as kid as like how did you learn this like keep out of whatever. Like nobody taught,
Okay.
nobody was explicitly teaching me this, because like it was like something that was like on the margins of my grandmother's, their toes. Like, where'd you get this
Fair enough.
from?
Yeah.
But I was like, they always like taught this thing. But I remember being 93, 94. I'll say this because I remember the first World Trade Center bombings, and a teacher, somebody saying like, "Oh, like made me feel uncomfortable about being Muslim," because I was like, "Oh, I'm Afghan." Like I didn't say I'm Afghan because I thought they were the same thing. Being Muslim and Afghan was the same thing. That's
Yeah.
fucking depressing.
Okay.
It's not the same. Um, but a teacher being like, "Oh, what's on your hands at Hina?" And I was like, "Oh, it's for my culture or whatever." And having this moment being like, "Oh shit, there's something wrong with me," because the way the woman looked at me was like, "Oh, you're Muslim," and I was like, I guess so. I don't know. And then 9/11 happens, right? This is 93, 2001 happens. The biggest significant change was that I noticed the white gaze. I noticed like the imperialist, white, colonizer gaze on me. I noticed how often, how commonly it was for me to language shift the tone of my voice, be like, yeah, I'm Muslim, but not that Muslim, or like, especially within queer spaces, being like, yes, I'm queer, and or like lesbian, whatever word I use then, and then be like, and minimize my Afghaniyat, minimize my Muslimani, like, because I was like, oh, there's like something that I had inherited in 1993, even before this, even before like 93, but like 9/11 gave me not just language for Islamophobia and xenophobia, but it was like highly exposing how much hatred they had for us. It's not even hatred, but they're like condescending, paternalistic narratives about us. They're homophobic narratives, and I also noticed, and I don't even want to be like, oh, it's like all like the power holders of this. It was like the people in my life that I loved, that I dated, that I like gave my like affinity to, my like time to, my professors, like, right? Be like, oh my God, who are the ones that hold this terrible like niyat, this gaze? Like, it's the first not even niyat, but like this is like the way that it would look at me, like with this like this terrible was like what my mom said, like Chishim Safidi, COE, whatever, like it is like this terrible like red, white, and blue you know gaze.
It was,
Yeah.
so it was more to do about you being judged. There
Yeah.
was a lot of judgment,
Yeah. And yeah.
which became very obvious. It
Yeah.
was very in your
Yeah.
face
Yeah.
because of your identity, of your religion, and your
Yeah.
background, I
Yeah.
should
And
say.
expose
Yeah.
my
Okay.
own
And
self-hatred also. And let me just say, like, it also as a result exposed the gaze with which I was like not kindly, not lovingly looking at the rest of my life or myself. I wanted to be vetted through that lens. And that was the moment I was like, maybe not anymore.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you, after 9/11, when the gates of so-called humanitarian industry, I call it humanitarian industry, opened at Afghanistan, and everyone from any background, if they knew or not, qualified or not, they just flooded. And because we've got passports,
Mm-hmm.
American, British, Canadian, we can go and do stuff. We need
Right.
funds, and we'll just do things.
Right.
Did did you never thought of using this opportunity to go in there, or was there something
Oh,
deep in the background which stopped you?
I did not think about going. Um, but I will say that because I don't think I realized what was happening in the background behind me as like a dum dum, like also like as somebody who's like, like I think I'm like conscious, but I'm not. Like I'm like I was actually what my eyes were on. I will not lie to you. I was a radical cheerleader. That meant I was in college, so I was like doing some shit around like talking about like being like I was actively. I would just take this for the rest of the team. You're welcome. Hi, Bivini. For everybody. Was like that. I would be like, oh, I want to like go to these like things, and people are like, oh, we have an Afghan girl on campus. By the way, I grew up in America, so like I'm not like I'm I'm happy to say I'm an Afghan girl, but they're like, we have they would like show these documentaries about like behind the veil, and I would be like, that's not true. Or like, like I would try like interrupt these shit, but like it was so patronizing and power giving. I'm not gonna lie about this. Like that I was like, I can speak up and be like, that's not true, that's not true, but I'm still just speaking only to the stupid myopic gaze of white supremacists, like imperialism, whatever. And I hate to say that we're just like only white people. Safidas. So it just if I use the word Safida, like the Safidas that are watching, there are like 7 of them, and they're like they won't know what I'm talking about. Safid. Um, I'm kidding. So I say all this, and then I did not realize that there was so much, and I understand why so much of the people in my life, my cousins, my uncles that are like older than me, became linguists. But I was not involved. I was like, that was not the world I was in. But like, these were the folks they were reaching out to, not the wazinas of the world. They're reaching out to like the halas
Yeah,
and the mamos and the kakos and the amas,
yeah.
who came here when they were my age, at those 20s and their 30s, 17s, whatever years it came, and they couldn't use their degrees. And like, right, there's like imperialism and capitalism like comes together, and you're like, oh shit, I still need to make fucking money. I need to make 90 to $100,000 or whatever year because I speak the money language, right? And I
Yeah.
only use this word because a couple years later, I was with somebody who was like, Wazina, you speak money language. I was like, I don't speak fucking Pashto, so like, get out of here. I grew up speaking Pashto, but I don't use that day to day.
Because you're actually Ahmadzi. You
No,
are
both
Ahmadzi,
parents. My
right?
mom, my father's an Ahmadzai, and my mother's an Islami. But we grew up with. I grew up with speaking Pashto as an infant, younger until like 2, 3, 4 as a toddler. My grandmother, my dad's side of the family is the Ahmadzais. We spoke a lot of Pashto, and they still speak Pashto. But then my mom's side of the family is like they were like the money makers, like whatever, like, and so they only speak Farsi or Dari, and they. So let's say like I grew up speaking only Dari or Farsi at home, and it was like my first language until I was like 8 or 9 years old, whatever. Um, but I remember like an ex girlfriend be like, "Wazina, like you could like be in linguist." I was like, "Do you want me to sell my soul even more? What the fuck? I live in America. I've already sold my soul." Like, and she's like, "But you speak the money language." I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And she's like a so-called like socialist at the time. I was like, so
Right.
I'm
Okay.
gonna
So this
yeah. So America, that
imperialistic
changed. That shifted
imperialistic
shifted my
view.
gaze. Yes.
Uh, okay. So did it actually occur to you that beside all these political ideologies and the differences which were at play back then, did your personal I hope I'm using
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
term correctly, uh, identity as a queer Afghan Muslim. Did it, in the back of your head, stop you from going there? Perhaps maybe working for free or not, but the fear of how would I be judged among the own society of Afghana and hardcore Muslims, that stopped you?
No. So the
No.
thing that actually brought me even closer to being and understanding my like Afghaniyat, like my like Afghan identity beyond, and I don't know if I'm using the word right, is that I knew that I always lived on the margins of American society, right? I knew that I grew up in America. I'm a white passing girl. There's many things about me that like, right, like I wasn't always blonde, but like there's like things about me that like look very Americana. But I knew I was
Yeah.
not like in the center and a power holder identity, and I knew I was like a weirdo, right? For like whether it was because I was gay, because like my Bibi John always had like Hina on her toes, and she like wore chadaras, and I don't think wearing a chadar makes you a weirdo, but like in the middle of Flushing, Queens, it does, like there's like things like that. You don't speak English, we didn't celebrate Christmas, like we don't do this American white like the things, right? So I knew I was a weirdo, I was at the margins. And as a result, like all of this I always felt here. And speaking up and doing more. And the idea, I always wanted to go back to Afghanistan. And I did go back in like 2006 or 7 ish. But I wasn't worried about being queer. my queerness, my sexual identity wasn't the thing that I was worried about, because I also knew that the reason why I was so comfortable being not straight was that both Allah put it in me, like God, like the same reason why I love cats, I love to cartwheel, I love, like rasmalai, shit like that, like
Oh
because
yeah, okay, I love
I
that.
do.
Yeah, I
I mean,
love
I
that.
learned to love that now. I didn't love it before. I mean, now before that, I loved whatever food I love to eat. Those things were like God
Fair enough.
given things, like, right? And so I didn't worry about that, but I knew that there was shame. There was like, chimegan, like that moment. But that was not my concern. I just was like, can I get in and do things without making people embarrassed? So like, I'll just leave
Okay.
that there. Yeah.
But in the meantime, you did find your calling in the city or the state you live, and you were at their service because of your empathy and your understanding of you. And and it was like, okay, this is none of my business who does what, but if there are people in under some sort of a danger of health issues and whatnot, then I'm here and I know how to
Yeah.
help them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you
If they
did
want
your
to call me, please do.
service.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was
Yeah,
called in. I would
bravo.
love to say I was called in, but I was not. But
Bravo.
yeah.
So obviously, humanity doesn't really need a name or a title or where people need you, but as long as people need you and you can get to them, that's what it actually
Mhm.
counts. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Bravo. Bravo. So let's get into a little bit more in-depth subject because before I get into this, tell me about your performing art, which uh, is it called their Where Will I Be Buried? Where will
Well,
I be
coming out
buried?
Muslim is like
I mean, I'm a, yeah, I'm a really big fan of shock rock. So I'm a very big fan of the shock factor into art, and that wakes you up, that gives you that boom, boom, wake up, listen, watch. So this is a beautiful piece, a very deep piece. So tell us
Mhm.
something
Yeah.
about this.
So it's like, where will I be buried? Also, it's also, I use the word like the Burial Rights Project. Also,
Mhm.
Huda Buat Bayarat. Also, another
Yep.
version is Inna Lillahi wa Inna Ilahi Rajiun, which is like,
And
from Allah we come, from Allah we return, or from God we come from. So so these are four different words
yeah,
and terms,
yeah,
iterations of this burial
okay,
project, which is intended
fair enough.
to not shock rock or like be a shocking or like fantastical expression of death and dying, but it is meant to both affirm and visualize and recreate the most un or inevitable is the word, like inevitable thing that will happen to us, which is dying. Um, and for me, is meant to both like not just like reconcile what's the things that I want to, like, what's the shame, what's like the shadam, what's the embarrassing, what's like the secrets I want to bury now in my living, in order to like continue to live. Like before I die, I would like to like live a life that's like fully expansive, but it's also meant to like also practice the choreography of dying. Like I think about the fact that, like, you know, more and more. I mean, like beyond COVID, all things like,
Could you
yeah, we'll go for it.
would you kindly be able to describe a little
Yeah,
bit of this
project.
performance and art for
Yeah,
the people who
100%.
haven't
Yeah,
seen it because it's on your page and a lot of people can't actually access that.
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I think it should be on the website of Where Will I Be Buried. I think the whole act is in
It
there.
is
Is it?
most of it is, but I
On
don't know if
yeah.
the
Okay.
page is like fully like the where, because Where Will I Be Buried,
Yeah.
the project, it was like it was an installation video thing, that may or
Okay.
may not
Yep.
be
Yep.
fully, like, I don't know if they like updated their website, but
Okay.
I know that like
Okay.
within next week wizina.com will be up, and like there's a little bit of the burial project
Uh-huh.
stuff, but so
Okay.
basically it's
Okay.
essentially like it is the practice, is the choreography of our death and dying as Awans specifically, but also Muslims. So it's like the wrapping of our preparing of our kafan. So like It is the 3 to 5 pieces of fabric that we will be buried with. Whether you want, I prepare it now, or usually if you're buried or like your body's prepared in a Muslim space, they'll give you sheets of fabric to wrap your body with.
Yep.
So it's the
Mhm.
preparation of that. So literally, it's like watching Wazina in slow-mo or like fast forward, wrapping, like cutting with my friend Tana, who's my
Yep.
counterpart in Coming Out Muslim. And she helps me like cut the thing up, and we're like cutting it up, and then we're like preparing it. I also am prepared. I've also pre-prepared for ones, which I love this so much. Like all the people in my life that I know that have died, passed away, they had a suitcase ready, prepared when they
Wow.
died.
Mhm.
Well, there was like the fabrics for their death, money for their burial or travel back to Afghanistan, the rose water, the camphor, the combs, the soap you need to like wash your body. And so I have my suitcase prepared now, which includes all those like very logistic things, but also like, what is the last memory I want to leave you with? Right? Like when I go, Bakhair, inshallah, whenever that happens, there's many memories that anybody will have, but whoever shows up in that room, or Toba, like the people that I want to wash and prepare my body, whether it's my lover, my partner, my mom, my sisters, generally be same sex people, will not be able to be in the room.
Yep.
And as a result,
Yeah.
whether they're alive or not, like I want to like be like, this is who Wazina was in the fastest snippet. So like it could be a seashell, it could be a surma, whatever it is. Like I want you to know who I was. That's my last moment of living. Like I want to leave this with you. So then coming up, this burial project has a little bit of like preparation of that, the suitcase, and also the wrapping. And so the wrapping part, I think, is a little bit more scandalous for some folks because depending which version you see, I might be naked, I may not be naked. Doesn't matter. The naked part doesn't really matter. But the part that's more scandalous of my nudity is the fact that I've done our version with a dear friend named Kais Munhazam, and he and I have done a version where he prepares my body, I prepare his body with the kafan, and we wrap him one another, because co-ed or intersex or like intergender wrappings are not a common thing unless you're married to one another, um, as husband and wife. And he prepares mine, I prepare his, and it's like the most beautiful experience I've ever. Both moments of like being wrapped and like put in a kafan, which is like generally like people might think is like so terrible to experience. It is so healing. It is the most like refreshing moment, or like maybe you're like just like brought the proximity of death and dying, but like it was. But so Kais Janda had done that for me, and there's a practice of doing that with the songs of Ahmad Zayed. Um, yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a
It's a
beautiful
beautiful
song,
song.
and it actually resembles and catches the feeling of your performance perfectly. What are those texts written on the shroud, on the
Mm-hmm. The first version,
kafan?
yeah,
Is it the? Yep,
one of the first
yep.
versions. So I remember one of my first memories of wrapping my one of my Bibi Jones with her kafan was that she had her fabrics ready, and on them she had her favorite duas, her like like whatever dua and surah she wanted. She had, which continues to like lose my words, because like when did she write that? When did she find time to sit there with a piece of, like, and like kafan fabrics are like not just like a piece of fabric, they're like 5 by 8, they're like 5 by 6 pieces of fat white fabric, stark white fabric. And she wrote all of her favorite surahs all over them, favorite duas. It's like, okay, so I know I do this as like a performance preparation, so I have like deadlines, right, for myself. But her deadline was her life, right? It's like it's not a deadline that's like show up on a stage or like whatever it is. Like that's her life. So she like took that time, she wrote those, which really struck me very intensely. And depending on who you ask, or depending which like general like religious world it is, like you should or shouldn't have like writing on your like kafan fabric. So as a result, for me in my first version, the version iteration was to ask people what are their secrets, what are the secrets that I could die with, what can I bury with me. And so this actually these the things that I wrote are not just my secrets, because I didn't realize like my secrets are a little bit, I was too embarrassed to say them out loud by myself. What are the things I'm dying with me. I asked people to submit them, so I wrote their secrets in between my own. And inshallah b'chayr, like whenever I pass, that will be part of the one of my layers, and I will take them to the earth with me. And that's what they're written in. It's like, so people's secrets about like everything from, yeah, what if they wanted to bury?
Anything they wanted to vent out and just bury it
Anonymously,
and get it done with.
Anonymously, yeah.
Well, as we said, افغانستان که خدا شما را عمر خدری نصیب کنه و عمر بسیار دراز جانجو. Even though the Lord has promised us two things, and He has stated that these two things I will provide whether you want or not, whether you ask for it or not. It's food and death. So you want it or not, you ask for it or not, I will provide you the food because I've given you a slit mouth, and the death.
Alhamdulillah.
Because as you said, inna Allahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. That's it. We come from God and we go back to God. Beautifully stated. Thank you very much for that, for the whole description of the act. And of course, people, I hope so that people would see that and get more understanding of it, because it was very deep. I saw it.
Yeah.
And it was very heart touching performance, which obviously tells you that the artist comes from a very deep part of inside themselves, within themselves, and that's how they have expressed it. It's a very powerful performance. Hopefully we'll be able to see it. So let's get into a proud Afghan Muslim queer. What is the connecting thread between Afghan queer and Muslim? Where did you find this thread that it made sense for you, while saying, contradicting the general belief and the general ideas that, okay, these can't go together. This cannot be connected. Afghan Muslim could be, Afghan queer could be, but queer Muslim, queer Afghan, even queer Afghan could be, but queer Muslim Afghan.
Yeah, right.
What is it that made sense for you?
Yeah, it was like the most simplest, and I probably should have thought about it harder or like much more like forward thinking, because when any of this started, like, first of all, like, it all started when I was born, so like it doesn't, I couldn't have thought, like, I obviously wasn't thinking about it then, but I want to like, and I hate the language of like I was born this way, because all of us are born this way, all of us are born whatever way we are, but we know what our context is, and my context allowed me to say, no, Wazina is going to say yes, or I'm going to manifest that in action, that Wazina is both queer, Afghan, Muslim, this and X, Y. Like, so like, yes, everyone's born this way, but not everyone's afforded the same actionability, right? So I will just like name that. And then the other piece was that, like, when people were like talking, especially 9/11 conversations we had, was like, when people would say, oh my God, these are Muslims. These are Muslims, like bang, like, or not banged, like they like, flew planes into like things, and they're Muslim. I was like, how do you hold their Muslimness? They're a Muslim, like, as Afghans, and they're Muslim, like, they're Islam as like Islam. And you don't question the fact, and other Muslims, other Afghans, other people were not even like questioning their Muslim, like how Muslim they were. But that wasn't a pop culture thing for me. And maybe I'm just using pop culture stuff, but I'm also going based on like, no one in my life was being like, like, because I've heard them say like, I was like, first of all, you can tell me I'm not Muslim enough, but how dare you tell me I'm not Afghan enough? You can't like dismiss my Afghaniyat. You can't dismiss my Afghan identity, but tell me I'm not a good Muslim. Bro, like, please, all of you, it's not even Buro Afghans. I'm like, please welcome. I welcome it from non-Muslims because just mainly where I get my like you're not Muslim enough things, not from Muslims, from non-Muslims. They're all scholars. Alhamdulillah, right? No, they're all out there. But so as a result, I was like, no, I am going to just speak for myself. So like, I just like needed to like just like this is what it is. Allah put it in me. I'm just gonna fucking claim it. That's the most part of it. Yeah, like queer. Okay, yeah. Because it never. I also come. I just want to say this. I come from a non-academic place, and I say this as somebody who just have an undergrad degree, but like that's cool. Like, what does make? I mean, like, I'm not gonna dismiss my like undergrad degree, but like, I am not a higher ed academic person. I don't come from a higher ed academic place or position in order to like explain why Afghan, queer, Muslim, X, Y, Z, any of this fits. It only comes the most simplest place, my most simplicity, like my irrational plane. That's all. That's all I can give you.
Okay, so is it fair enough? Is it fair to say that your belief is, if I come from God, if I come from Allah, right, it's Allah who made me this way. This is how Allah made my nature, and Allah is the most knowing and compassionate. Is it true?
100%. Yeah. As a yeah. That's
Beautiful. Because if we, each and every one of us could see that and realize that and believe in that and live with that. Because look at me, right? I've always tried so hard to be Afghan. I never tried to be Pashtun, even though, for in a general belief, I'm a very pure-blooded Pashtun because my mom is from Kandor, Achikzai, my father is from Paktia, Dunwan, Mangal, and we're very pure blood. Right? Never tried so hard to be Pashtun, but I tried hard to be Afghan. And same goes with being a Muslim, right? Musliman. Never tried to go for any sects. Either I'm Sunni or Shia or this and that. No. Know your God, find your God, love your God, because those who say that we want the God for his godliness, for his compassion, that's whom the God comes to. You can ask wealth, you can ask power, you can ask whatever. Yes, in a time, for a certain period, the God will gift you that. The God will allow you that, and will look at you and see how you deal with that, how you use that, the gifts and the grants that He has granted upon you. But when you want God only for his godliness, Him being the most powerful, then that's what you're gonna get, right? So I don't think that anyone anywhere has the right to say that you're not a Muslim or you're not an Afghan because you don't have a big beard or you don't wear the scarf or you don't blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. If we believe in God, then we should believe that God is the most knowing. So we can't really tell the God or suggest that I think God will find this wrong. That just goes against the whole belief. Bravo. Beautifully explained. Thank you very much for that. I think because that was very important for some people. This would be very important thing to know how does all this come together as. So let's get into before taking a lot of your time. So quickly, I've got two questions. One, as we said in the start, that we're going to get into it. So sex education for Afghans, and those who have just arrived and those who are back home.
Yeah.
Right. You could briefly tell us, those who have just arrived, you can go in depth as much as you want. I'm just more worried about your time. Those who have just freshly arrived from Afghanistan, how much do they have to know? What are the very significant things that they have to know about sex education? And for those who are still back home, what is the best way of approaching them and trying to raise this awareness?
This is a really hard one because I think about this all the time. I work with people at schools around it. I work with like everyone because I really want to be mindful, not just mindful. It's one to like remind people that like everyone, every culture, every religion, no matter where you are, like you have like all ones in a camp, it just doesn't matter. Like right, not like beyond being Afghan, being Christian, all the things like every community, every person has and can has the access to like sex ed. Like it is relevant to you no matter what, right? Like being and sex ed is relevant to an infant, a fetus, actually, a fetus to the moment you die. Every single one of us needs and accesses and is receiving sex education, whether or not it's formal or informal, right? Because there are messages and moments around our gender, pleasure, gender identity, relationships, communication, sexual violence, body image, self esteem, um, body and health, like, you know, from pubic hair to nipple hair to periods to toe hair to am I producing enough semen at 70,000 years old to 13, you know, whatever the case is, like those are all relevant things regardless of where you are and more that I'm missing, right? So all of us have it, and every single person in our lives is a sex educator. I am, you are, as a father, as a baba, as your every single person is sending us messages around sexuality, sex ed, what is right, what is wrong, what is okay, what's not okay. The distinction, the hardship is that when we are people that are living, or like I think about like my mom and dad, right? When they came to the US, they never signed off on that letter that said, hey, make sure Wazina can't go to like, it was like Bibi Wazina. Because when I came to the US, they were like, oh, my name was Bibi Wazina. And everyone was like, oh, her name is
Oh, okay,
Bibi.
that's cute.
Until
That's
because
very
they were
cute.
like,
And then
because my parents were like, everyone's a Bibi
yeah,
Wazina. No, they're
yeah,
not Bibi Wazina.
yeah, okay.
Because according to schools, my name is Bibi. I'm like, who the fuck is Bibi? I'm like, oh, that's me. It's not. Until I was 18, I changed my name. I went to Wazina Bibi, right? But my sisters figured it out. Thank God. Um, but my parents didn't sign that letter that said Wazina can't go to sex ed or HIV education, whatever it was when we were like in elementary school. Because my mom and dad were like, yes, no, our daughter, our kid lives in the United States, lives in New York City. She should go to these things. I was grateful. What I would love to tell any family, whether you live in Afghanistan, wherever you live, wherever you are transplanted or sadly in exile in, every community, every state, every country, province will hold a different set of values that may or may not align with our own, the house one. But like you have to tell your child, your family members, like what your values are. And I will also say and note that, like, right, like what I was told, I was taught something, I didn't believe it. Same way that you didn't, right? Like some of us are taught things, whether in a classroom or in a household, we're taught it. Doesn't mean I learned it. I mean, I learned it, but I didn't believe it. The best and the beauty of being well equipped Afghans, Afghans, Muslims, any human being is that like you develop your own set of values. It's just really, really hard to be the badass who, or good ass, whatever version of yourself that like your mom and dad told you this thing and then you just don't do it. That's the hard part. So, but sex ed should be taught from the very beginning, and we teach it in very different ways. And I can tell I can get a whole session on how to teach it for us. But who we are, us, very much varies because like we are Afghans, but depending on what moment and generation you're in and who your parents and family are and families, like right, like we can multiple moms and dads, and then like where do you live? We have to find that like really in between of like
Yeah.
what cultural context am I in? Denmark, am I in US and beyond the US, like am I in New York City, am I in Arkansas, am I in Oklahoma, Am I in München or am I in like, other place in like Germany, Berlin, right? Like Australia. What's, my God,
Yep.
what is the like,
Right.
yeah. So it's like
Okay.
it's like reconciliation.
So
Yeah.
exactly. It is a reconciliation of to actually identify where do we come from, which environment have we come from, which environment do we assimilate in, and as per that we can actually make this game plan of how they need to be taught, what they have been taught before, what they know of beforehand, and what they should actually know now, and what they need to know, what's the need, and what are they lacking, and what's the misconceptions or misinformation what they
Right.
know, and that needs to be all
Right. And
removed.
there's a lot
Bravo.
of shit that also I was told, like, I was told, I'm just gonna say this because we're at the internet right now. I don't like, and we have like 7 minutes of whatever time to go. I was told some weirdo things about my period, like that I shouldn't have like chutney, I shouldn't have like ketchup even on the day of my period. I was like, why? Why? To this day, I'll be 39 this week. My mom's like, "Mary's Morrissey, you didn't know." She takes my ketchup off my plate. I'm like, I want ketchup. Like these are like tales and stories based in some cultural truths that are not my cultural truths. Like things that like I don't want to throw anybody's stuff away, and I don't
Things,
want to like dismiss, right? Like there's like stuff there.
so there are things which don't really necessarily have uh, a core or a background of scientific facts, but it's just common belief of that it came from the grandma story,
It did, and I would love
right?
at some point for us to be like talk
It
about that, right?
goes
Like,
like that.
can Moradam, can she
Exactly.
tell me why? Like, she thinks it's not a good idea, and I can say, Moradam, that's not true. Or I can say,
You know
I
what?
think
I
that's true,
will.
but I'll do it for you.
I bravo. It's very funny because I remember I was in India because I spent like 11 years in India, and I remember my cousin, my very close, or my first best friend, right? We were kind of close in age as well. He was like 2 years older, and we were these young kids, probably around 10 years old, right? And we were just thinking as the boys would do, and we were like, okay, dude, I mean, how does this happen? That as soon as people get married, then they have children and not before that. How does this happen? Does the marriage have a
Mhm.
magic spill into it that they just chuff make on a side and
Yeah,
then you just get kids after that, or something gets approved and you're given a child? How does so? Yeah, I mean,
that's how I thought about it.
these
Yeah,
things should be taught.
I mean, that's what I
Yep,
thought about.
yep,
It was like,
and
you pray so hard for it that Khuda let me. I was like, I was like, oh shit,
bravo.
I've prayed so hard. I'm gonna be a teen mom. I will be a teen parent. I will be like the Virgin Mary. I wasn't. I really
Exactly.
thought it
Yeah,
was gonna be me. I was like, oh, I prayed so hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bravo,
Yeah.
bravo, bravo. Okay, so before I could go into my last question, I could. We have a lot to talk about, of course, and hopefully you will get time for us in a very near future to tell us specifically about the work that you do and how can we educate our people. We're gonna make a specific episode for
Oh,
that,
fun.
right? Hopefully you will have time. But before I could go into that, what was it that you wanted to ask?
Oh, this is like silly. It's not really that serious. So, when it comes to food, you know what like dampocht is, right? Dampocht, like it's like the chicken, the brown rice, like all cooked dampocht. Like like your mom puts a chicken in
Yeah,
the thing. Yeah,
yeah,
dampocht. Okay, you know the
yep.
dampocht. That's great. It's a fuck Hail Mary. So I love a fuck
Okay.
Hail Mary. It's like right. It's not realistic. Nobody like come for don't
Dampochte, dampochte,
like dampocht. Like the binge, like with
calamari,
cheek bozbugo.
dampochte,
I'm not more like
calamari.
no.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, oh, okay,
like
okay, okay.
British,
Oh, yeah,
British,
yeah, yeah,
like
okay, yeah,
Dumpuk.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah, of course, of
Okay,
course.
so
Yeah, yeah,
I went too far. So a fuck Kill Mary again, right? Nobody's really gonna have sex with this thing. Nobody's gonna marry this thing. Nobody's gonna kill this thing. Let's thank you, internet. The 5 people that are watching us and whoever watches it afterwards. No one's gonna kill anything. We got you. So everybody loves like a Mantu Oshak debate. But if I said to
yep,
you, Janum, Dumpuk, right? No, like brown rice with chicken, londi,
yep,
Londi,
Okay,
and
okay.
kabuli palau, which people like love or hate
Yes, yes, of course.
raisins and
Yep.
carrots. Which one would you fuck, kill, or marry?
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Fair enough. Ah,
Obviously, it's not
so,
not like
shit.
actual fuck, kill, marry. Oopsie. Not.
Hey, I mean, why not? I was when I was one of those so-called allegedly jasus, because I was a interpreter, a cultural advisor for Spanish special ops, right? So, and some people would have told us a lot of these weird questions coming to their mind. I never thought that this would be something that I'd really have to think about it.
I
But
think.
I did watch American Pie back then, American
Uh-huh,
Pie
uh-huh.
back then, and living in an all boys barrack, I thought that wouldn't be a bad idea, man. Eventually, you would have to really go for that, that pie.
I'm in.
But
I'm in.
the books,
I'm in.
but jokes aside, Dampoch. Well, first of all, Dampoch with only morg. That's a very kind of rich man's thing because Dampoch can be done without chicken
Right,
as
it's like
well.
biryani, right? It's like
You know, so
essentially it's like Afghan biryani, right? Right?
yeah, kinda, yeah, kinda, because biryani would be more like qabli palau because it's more like a fried rice,
Mm-hmm.
right? But anyways, okay. So if I could, what was it? If I could
A
love, fucking
fuck,
marry,
kill,
right?
marry. It doesn't matter. Like you could just
Kill,
give me.
kill,
You can
kill.
also just give me a
Okay,
tier of like
okay,
I
yeah,
love this one
yeah,
most. I
yeah,
hate a medium and the hate. Like you can also
yeah,
make
yeah,
that way.
yeah,
I don't need to be like that much of a
yeah.
weirdo. I am a weirdo,
I'm
by the way.
a, I am not a foodie person, and I love this question because this is really cool, and no doubt that now I literally know that you're so cool.
I'm a weirdo.
Uh, oh God, I'm not a foodie person. I don't mind anything, but if I could kill, I would first kill Qabli Palau. Oh no, I would kill Londi Palau because it's a very
It
extravagant kind of
is,
meat.
right? You should like get the meat, dry the meat, you
Londi.
salt the fucking meat, just like hang it up. In
Yeah,
America,
it goes for
we still
days.
hang it up in our
Then
freaking garage. Yeah.
wow,
I'm one of
wow,
the few
okay.
people. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, it is a very extravagant meal, but I would kill that extravagant
Mhm.
meal. Uh, in a sense of fucking, as in like just playing
Right.
around, perhaps that term. Yeah, Qabli Palau. Yeah, I will fuck around with it. Yeah, for sure. Marry,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely
It's a little bit.
Dampoch
It's easier
because
to
it's a
make.
very
Yeah.
common. It's easier to make. It's common. It's
Delicious. Yeah.
affordable for almost everyone. And it is delicious. It gives you energy because it is a bit fatty.
So, because all the
And
stuff's cooked in.
and
Yeah.
yes,
And like
yes,
for
it's
folks who
oily.
don't know, like
So
kabuli palau usually right is like with like a beef product, right? Like a beef meat or like a
oh
yeah.
yes,
So like that's a little more
of course,
expensive,
of course,
like
of course. But Dampocht I would marry because it's very affordable for
mhm,
everyone
me too.
throughout the Afghan spectrum. So I would marry anything which is because my favorite meat is lubia. You know,
Not
so
bamia.
I'm
So next
not
time
a very
I'll give you lubia, bamia, gulpi or something like that, like mix.
hey, that would be really unfair
Or
because
kadu.
I'm
No, but no.
Pashtun.
Kadu, not a kadu. Actually, it would be
I'm
like potatoes, like
Pashtun. I
kacholu,
love kadu. I love kadu. I
bamia.
would kill kacholu. I would kill
I love kadu.
kacholu kormesh because kadu. I would love it. Buronish and boloni and buroni because our Prophet Muhammad
Mm-hmm.
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Love it.
one of his favorite meals
Kadu.
was actually pumpkin.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
That's why
just love
I think that's
it.
why I did not perfect it, but I'm very good at my kadu, bulani, burani,
Oh,
because I remember when my
yeah.
baby John telling me about that, but also she like loved it, but I realized she loved it because the prophet loved it. Yeah, so I learned to master
I
it.
no no no. I just love it.
Yeah,
And of course, yes. So that was a great question. Thank you very much. Nobody has
you're
done that
welcome
to
to
me
take it.
yet.
Yeah,
Nobody has. Thank you. Of course, you know what? You would be amazed how many times I've thought of of this kill fucking marry question, but being Afghan podcast, I'm like, oh, I don't think I should be asking, but I love that attitude. I will give you something. I will tell you this small secret. All right, in public, of course. So I was looking for my cousin when I was really new on this Instagram thing, right? And I was looking for one of my cousins. Okay, and I will tell you that in the chat who I was looking for and who my cousin is. And it's really ironic that your name came up, right? And I was like, oh shit, I never thought that my cousin would look that cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna request to follow. So the request never really got accepted. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So obviously she doesn't know that it's me, her cousin. And I've got this weird display picture or profile picture, so no one knows. But I was like, okay, but I look at her hairstyle, and I think you had a different profile pic back then, maybe. And I was like, okay, maybe she's a bit poke, she's a bit poke, arrogant.
Poke. Oh my God, I love that.
And all that. Yeah, poke, okay.
I love
poke,
poke, yeah.
Arrogant.
Yeah.
When we actually started to talk after Ustad Yusuf's podcast, and I told you there's something about you which is very familiar to me, if you remember. Because all of my best friends today, once before they actually started to talk to me, they thought I was arrogant, bitch-faced, poke bacha. They all thought. When we actually started to hang out, and they were like, Lamar Bachish, you know what? I thought you were so poke, man. But now that we know you, that same thing happened to me and you. And I was like, oh my God, you are seriously coolest dude. Yeah. I was like, you're just like me. Yeah, you do. But until I started to speak to you, I was like, no, you're actually so similar to me. You look like this because you're chic and you're cool and obviously, and then when you talk, you're so friendly, so humble. And I was like, there's something very relatable about you, which kind of tells my own story, not to go away with that gray hair, which I had it. So yeah, I had to admit
and
that because I did.
And I would not be with you actually in this conversation before. I watched, but I'm a blingy fan. I was gonna wear a blingy sun sweatshirt. Where are my sweatshirts right here? I have something here. I had a handy. Oh God, where is it? But I have one here. I was gonna wear my blingy Zort Meta or my the four mothers. So I know who you are or who you are. I don't know who you are. Generally, we're I know who you are. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm a very sought out human being. And all I want to do is
cool.
Eat some food and maybe have some wine and
I really admire that. I really admire that, and I really admire for the person that you are. You are very true to heart. You're very original, and you know who you are, which is very rare in these days that people actually know who they are. So thank you very much. Before we go out, we want to go out with a bang. With a bang always. And this is a question that I ask all of my Afghan friends. The chaos of the past 30 years. How much are we Afghans involved, in your opinion? We ourselves. We can blame anyone. Yes. We can go days on that.
But I don't have any fingers to point necessarily, but when you ask the question, in the last 30 years or 40 years, whatever it is, as somebody who is now going to be, and this is, I'm not going to be hung up on my age, but I'm just going to say this because of the numbers for this moment, in similar, 20, in the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever, I'm being mindful of how many partnerships or moments I've had that went good, bad, and then sour, and Halashan, I'm like, oh shit, here I am now. Who's the common denominator? Wazina. Similarly, the only common denominator are Afghans. But I don't know which moment or which community, which power holding because I do know and believe with very little access to living in Afghanistan, um, or not having lived in Afghanistan, is that who are the power holders? I can't name or say, but I mean, it can only be us, right? Like, I think about restorative justice, I think about restoration, I think about accountability, I think about how to bring myself to the best version of myself. And sometimes it is like, but doing it as a collective, like, doing it by myself is like the worst, hardest thing I can do. Don't make me do it. But like, as a community, as like a country, as a culture, like a collective, but it has to do with Afghans. I mean, like, it has to do with us as the people. But I want to be mindfully saying that because the Afghan people who face and experience day to day for the last 50, 60 years, the shit end of the stick. I don't want to say that word, but like, or the majority of the people who are, right, like, experience like the worst parts of it. And like the Afghans who are responsible for, like, like, just like in the US, like the whatever percentage, but it's them, it's us. And those of us who are like complacent, we're complacent in it. I'm complacent in it. All of us are. How we be less complacent? How are we more communicative? How are we more like engaging and like getting to the heart, mind, and gut of the folks who make a difference? That will take another series of time. But we have to like organize collectively. Is like, how do I get to like, yeah, the tiers of the tiers that will make a difference? Like, not like TEARS, but like,
Yep.
yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your opinion, your authentic and very honest opinion. Wazina John Jandun, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It was a privilege. I'm honored to have you with us, and hopefully, inshallah,
yeah,
these chats would be kept in this public domain for ages to come, and in the future, our children, grandchildren will find it and listen to it. And
they'll make their own. They'll have their own. Yeah, inshallah.
And they had started this initiative. Any last words?
No, I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for having us. I am so grateful for the art of your credence, your belief, your rebellion. Like, you understate your magic, your rebellion, your like table tossing, not table tossing, fuck kill Marys. Like, you like imagine, like, you do it, you're doing it, you've been doing it. I am grateful for your humbleness and your humility of it, and also understate it, continue to like, I'm just like, I just want to like name, like, you are like, whether it's like every episode you've ever had, you are the music maker, you're the heart maker, you're like the healer, you are like the Sufi poet, you are the poet. I'm listening to your Espandi series right now. You are a sex educator, you are like the rabble, you're like all the things. So like, I just want to like name that you are all of those. And thank you for hosting us with you and bringing us together with you.
Thank you very, very much. It's very kind of you. And if I'm all that, only because
and a dancer. And I met Samia last night, by the way. I met Samia last night, the Disco Stand event. You were also a dancer.
Yes.
She was like fucking badass. Samia, it was so good.
She is, and I have utmost respect for her and her art and her badassness.
She really was.
But I learned all this from beautiful friends and Afghans like yourself. I just absorb. I'm a good absorber. I'm a sponge, and I talk to you guys and I absorb all that you guys give us. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hey,
Bowie, get.
Is that bang bang?
Bowie, bang bang.
Bowie bang bang. Bowie bang bang looks so annoyed. Very camera shy.
She's a Shishimoda over here. Because
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Okay, bye.
That's so cute. That is so cute. And I know her more than she knows me. So thank you very much, Joe. Hazina Jana Khan, for your time, for your wisdom,
Thank you for being
for
here.
all your information. Thank you very much. Enjoy your night. God bless.
Okay.
Allah Hafiz.
Hafiz.
And this is Voices from Mountains with Wazina Jana Juandun. Till next time we meet, thank you very much. God bless you all. Be positive. Love you all.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.